Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Inflight. It's been a minute since we've last spoken to each other. I hope you are all well. It seems like some places in the country are starting to reopen after closing down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that's going swimmingly for you all. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we have an episode ahead of us. So, this week's episode of Inflight, we were very privileged to speak with Ty Shuff, who you're probably familiar with. You might not be familiar with the name that I just gave, Ty Shuff. You might be familiar with his Twitch name, which is Catstrator. So Ty has been streaming for quite a while, and is really a prominent XPlane streamer and has been for a long time. And Norm and I had both watched him for a few years before doing this interview, so we had loads of questions for him that I guarantee you'll enjoy. Ty has a lot to say, and that's not a bad thing. He's a very interesting person to talk to. He brews beer, he brews wine. He is a really driving force in the XPlane community as well, and also FS 2020. He's one of the first alpha testers for it. And we talk about all of that in this episode of the podcast. As I said, Ty was a really great person to talk to. I really enjoyed hearing from him. Norm really enjoyed hearing from him, and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy hearing from him as well. So, without further ado, please welcome Ty Shuff to the show. Ty, thank you so much for coming on the show today. How is your lovely 6 p.m. evening going?
Oh, it's fantastic, dude. I went out and mowed the lawn for the first time today. It was getting high enough. So we have a 18-month-old daughter, and we're trying to get her outside finally, more, whatever. And it was high enough that I realized that she was a little skittish to walk around the grass because it was up past her waist in some cases.
Gee.
And I'm just thinking to myself, if I was to walk through grass or any sort of, wilderness area where the thing was above my waist, I would probably be a bit terrified.
Yeah.
It would be a jungle for you.
Yeah. So that combined with my wife nagging me, I finally made the decision to mow the lawn today. So that was my activity.
Has it been 18 months already?
It's been 18 months, dude. Yeah. It was May 15th. So like 2 days ago. What was 2 days ago? Friday was the 15th month or 18th month.
Yeah. Following you on social media, Twitter, you post your little updates here and there.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Like they just grow like weeds.
Oh, it's crazy,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. They people tell you that. They're like, oh, it's going to go so fast and this and that. And when you're in the moment, you're just like, I am so ready to get to the next point of this whole, whatever this thing is. And then you get there and you look back and I'm like, huh. One of my coworkers, him and his wife just had a baby a month ago, I think. April 15th. And they brought little Piper in to, put her show her off on the webcam and on our video conferencing stuff and whatnot. And I'm just like, wow, she's so tiny. It's been fun though. It's an adventure. Every day is something different. Climbing and she learned how to turn the TV on and off now. So she'll go and if she doesn't like what you're watching or if she doesn't like what's on TV, she'll just go turn it off.
She's a power freak already.
I'm just like, dude, you're not supposed to do this.
Good luck. That's all I got to tell you.
Yeah, I'm like, your mother can't even turn the TV off. Like, how the hell are you doing that?
She's the boss in the house now. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. We realized today, she's been very insistent on having things her way. And I do what I always do and I go start Googling stuff and realize that the terrible twos can actually start about a year and a half. And we're in the terrible twos. Like, there's no question. She's like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And if I don't get to do it, I'm going to stomp and scream and throw myself on the floor. It's fantastic. I love watching it.
Let's just say that they're smarter than we were at their age. Believe me, they are.
I hope not.
It's probably
I'm not sure how I feel about that. No, we don't do any tablet time. That's the thing.
Oh,
like she's never touched. She's seen my phone because she likes to look at pictures of herself on the phone, but she's never held the phone. She's never held a tablet. My wife we're trilingual, but we're raising Amalia to be bilingual. So she watches a lot of Portuguese Sesame Street and Portuguese cartoons and whatnot. So that's the closest we get to tablet time. But we're trying to minimize, if not eliminate, screen time for some time now, or for a while.
Wow.
for various reasons.
How does she feel about your airplane stuff, your streaming stuff, your whatever you do airplane wise at home? How does she feel about that?
My wife or my daughter?
Your daughter.
She doesn't care. I mean, we took her. So I've taken her flying twice, general aviation, and she was so young that she had no idea anything. Like she had no cognition about anything. As far as the streaming goes, if she happens to be awake, my wife will bring her in, and I have a full set of lights that are up in front of me that when I turn them on, it's like really bright in your face. So she just sits, and I got like 27-inch, 38-inch widescreen and a 27-inch monitor. So I'm surrounded by lights and monitors, and she just sits there with the biggest eyes looking around. Like there's so much going on, and I don't know what to focus on.
Wow.
So she's always a champ. And then if you've caught some clips or caught any moments on the stream, she'll grab the microphone. She'll yank the windscreen off, try to eat that. I'm like, no, you can't have that. And then she'll chew on the microphone itself, and then she'll start moving it around so it squeaks and really, sounds fantastic on the stream. I love it though. There was an instance last year. So the beginning of last year, I had the opportunity to be on the front page of Twitch for 4 independent streams.
I remember that.
Yeah, nice. It was crazy, dude. So coming out of that, I don't think there was a lot that I gained. Other than some recognition from a few people at Twitch. But there was a moment on the first night, for whatever reason, she was still awake. So my wife brings her in, and I kid you not, we went from 10,000 viewers to 16,000 viewers.
Ooh.
And I had no cognition or no idea why this happened. And a friend of mine posts this screenshot of the front page of Twitch, and there's a full screen webcam picture of me and my daughter. So I can only surmise that she got me roughly 5,000 or 6,000 additional viewers for the duration that she was the thumbnail for that moment. So it was awesome.
I gotta go get a new baby then.
I
gotta go get a new baby then.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Puppies, babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seems like she's the star of the show then.
Oh, everybody loves it. Yeah. I love having her on too.
Awesome.
She's a ham. It's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I basically watched you since I discovered XPlane. You're one of the first people that I've watched. I've watched most or all your live stream when you were on YouTube. You did the switch to Twitch. And I even met you in person, by the way. Flight Sim Expo in Orlando. Was it
Boy, that was a time.
I know. You met like a million people. I was one of the guys that came up like, hey, how you doing?
Well, yeah, that's I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a weird, I know you stream as well. It's such a weird thing when you go to those events and you're like a minor celebrity. And I'm like, I'm just a dude, man. Like,
yeah.
I eat, sleep, and poop like everybody else. Like it's kind of bizarre. And then instances like this where it's like, oh yeah, dude, I met you at Flight Sim Expo and this and that. I'm like, great.
It's true.
Did I remember you? Was I drunk yet?
No. Did you have a couple of beers by then? I don't know.
I have no idea. So I had that Flight Sim Expo. I had accumulated a dozen drink tickets over the course of the day. So
you were very forthcoming with everybody. I mean, I saw you tell people to come up. People were standing off looking at you. You're like, come up here. Come say hi,
Yeah. Get your ass over here and say something.
Exactly. It's true.
Yeah.
But,
so you say you got into XPlane then. So it's time. I'm going to turn this back on you. When did you get into XPlane?
2.5, 3 years ago, maybe. If that.
So you've only known XPlane 11 then?
The tail end of 10.
Okay.
And then I had like an old iBook that could barely get like 2 frames per second, but it was going to work anyway.
Yeah.
Then 11 came. I was like, I need a new computer. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
But
you bought a PC then?
I did buy a PC, not a new one at the time. I bought a potato and I fixed it up. I patched it together with a GT 720 graphics card. Like,
I
had like 1 gig of, oh my God, I have 1 gig of video RAM. That's good. Yeah.
So you basically have like single colored textures everywhere at that point.
At that point, it's true. But but I remember your streams though. I mean, back to you. It was one of the things that you look forward to as XPlaner, because you know what? Let me just say this. Let me give you credit for this.
Oh, here we go.
A lot of streamers now, including myself, will say hi to a whole bunch of people at the beginning of the stream. That's one thing that you did. You did it for like 15 minutes. And at some point, I'm like, why are you saying hi to everybody? Like, let's get flying. Now I understand.
I get it.
You would literally shout everybody out. I mean, what felt like to do that at your streams?
I think that's one of the most important things to do. And as long as I can keep doing it, as long as it's like not going to dominate the whole stream, I even tell people, I'm like, listen, if you want to see flying, don't show up until 8:00. Because I'm probably going to sit there. It's weird to say it like this, but most of the streams are pretty formulaic at this point. 10 to 15 minutes of just kind of music and intro, let people sort of start to sift in. I'm going to talk for 20 to 30 minutes, say hello to people, talk about the week, talk about what's going on, whatever. And then we're going to spend a half an hour setting the plane up and all that stuff. So if you want to actually see wheels come off the ground, about 8:00 is probably your best bet. But the saying hi to everybody, I've mentioned this on panels and I've mentioned this, a number of times, but it makes folks feel like they're part of the community, and that's the goal. Like, it's not about the flight sims, it's not about the plane, it's not about this or that. It's about the people coming in, the people that are coming in and saying hi. And I've mentioned a couple weeks ago, I do my best to try to remember first names as often as possible. So, WBS52 comes in. Oh, hey Bill, how you doing? I've had dinner with him and his wife before, and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to do that as a streamer. Now on YouTube, it's a different story. And on when I was posting on YouTube, I started cutting a lot of that out because I know that people didn't really care for that. And now I don't even bother posting on YouTube anymore because the cost benefit, and that's something we can get into in a second. But it's cool to hear that, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get into streaming in the first place? Was this just something you decided to do one day, or was it in the back of your mind forever? Because I mean, I've always had that at the back of my mind, just like to make some content here and there, but I never really did it until I started working at Threshold and was kind of forced into it,
Man, so we go all the way back 2011. So let's go back 2011. I had this, I worked for a company. I had this coworker, Isaac. Isaac's awesome dude, phenomenal programmer. And he was into watching StarCraft on Twitch. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, what the hell are you watching video games for? That's kind of weird. Yeah. And so he'd talk about it, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, this and that. And then I found myself jumping on and watching a little bit, and then watching the podcasts, and then watching the tournaments. And I'm like, oh, I'll give them $25 so I can, see this tournament in HD. And then driving down to Providence, Rhode Island in 2012 to see a tournament live, which was amazing. And so through StarCraft, I got into Twitch. And it was around this same time I was hitting the point in my career where I'm turning into disgruntled IT worker. I did the dumb thing where you take a hobby and you turn it into a job, but you do a job working for the man. And if anybody works in the tech industry, they know, they're sitting there nodding right now. They know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I hit this point with my job where it was no longer fun to do as a hobby. Tinkering with computers, writing code and building web pages and whatever at home. Just, I had no interest in it anymore. So I started thinking of, what other kind of things might be fun to do. And I remembered back to when I was a kid, I had a Mac, and I had a A10 simulator. It was A10 Cuba, and I had a little joystick, and I had no idea how to do anything except crash the airplane. Which as a 12-year-old was the coolest thing you could ever do.
Still is sometimes.
It still is fun sometimes. Won't lie.
Crash physics.
Yeah. And I grew up pretty, we grew up pretty poor. So like flying never seemed like the kind of thing that was even close to being attainable. Like even traveling via air was not something I did for the first, 20 some odd years of my life. So, I don't know what it was, but I decided to go try a flight simulator. This was so around 2012, 2013 range. And I did what everybody did. I tried to find a way to purchase FSX and it didn't work. So I pirated it. Because you couldn't buy it. Like you literally could not buy this thing anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into it and I'm like, all right, well, this is interesting. I was keyboard and mouse. And it was an awful experience. Like if you ever tried to flight sim keyboard and mouse, like it's terrible, especially in FSX. Like it just didn't work. So I bought an Xbox joystick, a 360 joystick that could plug in. I still have it on my desk somewhere. And I did that for a bit. And then the long way of getting to, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I had this light bulb moment. I'm like, is there anybody streaming this? Because I had seen YouTube videos of flight simming stuff. And I remember looking at flight sim YouTube videos, because I remember there was a time where I was watching cockpit videos of airplanes landing, and I remember seeing people do flight sim stuff. I'm like, why would anybody watch this? Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see real airplanes. Of course I did.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, and I'm like, but then this light bulb hit. And I'm like, well, I'm on Twitch. I was streaming a little bit of StarCraft 2 here and there for my buddies, and it was like, whatever, dude. I wasn't super good, but it was still fun. And I'm like, all right, well, there's nobody streaming FSX. There's like maybe 2 people with nobody watching. Sure, why not? Let's just fire it up. So 2013, I want to say it was. Was it 13? It was 13 because it was like 2 months before I got engaged to my wife. So yeah, it was early 2013. I fired up the stream for the first time, and I had no idea what I was doing, man.
Yeah.
And so then as you progress, like one thing leads to another, and I'm a very driven person when it comes to I want to do a thing. So I said, okay, I'm going to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Well, I did that. I mean, that was easy. You take off out of Heathrow, hit the button that says autopilot, hit the acceleration button to 16 or 20x or whatever.
Go get lunch.
Get lunch. Well, no, I didn't know how nav mode worked. So I was using default ATC, and I would punch in a heading, and I'd fly, and they'd say resume on nav, but I keep flying that heading, and they'd come on, get pissed at me, and they give me a new heading. I just fly that heading. So I just did that the whole way.
Oh my God.
Eventually found LaGuardia. I landed my 747 in LaGuardia after, I think, about 9 or 10 attempps.
A 747 in LaGuardia, you said?
Of course, dude.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Come on. So that was that. And I was like, all right, well, that was cool. So what else can I do? And so I learned like rudimentary ILS stuff, and it was all like it was like monkeys banging on a keyboard trying to figure out how to program an ILS.
Oh
so I did an ILS approach where I broke out and saw the airport. I'm like, oh, that was cool. Okay, what else can I do? And then there was this thing, Rex Simulations or Rex Software had this. Oh man, they had this thing. I think it was called Latitude, and it basically was like scoring flights, but you had to work your way up the ranks, which nowadays I can't stand that kind of stuff. That
sounds disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had to fly. So I had to fly the Cessna 172 to graduate to the Baron, to graduate to anything higher. So I flew the 172 and the Baron all the way across the country from Boston to Seattle and then back.
What?
And I was like, all right, that was cool. I did a lot of it, time compression and all that stuff. I was like, all right, that's cool. And then that leads to, all right, now I start hearing about the Majestic Q400. So now I'm finding Reddit stuff. I'm finding, news articles and stuff. And I'm like, oh, there's a weird payware market that people are talking about. So I discovered the Q400. It was actually right around the time the Q400 came out. And so I bought that to be my first aircraft, which was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And returned it because the sound, like I was using Windows 8, and one of the updates for Windows 8 broke the Q400. Like it didn't, like the sounds would cut out like 5 minutes in. So I had to get a refund on that. I'm like, well, sucks, but whatever. Then I got my one and only PMDG plane, the Jetstream 4100, and progressed from there. But the whole time I'm doing this, I'm streaming it. And that circles us all back. So I'm banging my head against the keyboard, trying to learn how to do this stuff. And I'm streaming pretty much the whole thing. And at the time it was like myself, Matt Davies probably had 50 or 60 people that were watching, if that. Frugal dipped his toes into streaming a little bit. And he was kind of the first YouTube celebrity, if you will, that came over. And this was back when Frugal had like 15,000 people on YouTube. So it's been a while. And yeah, so I'm streaming the whole thing. And then that leads us to FSX once and surely absolutely breaking. Like it just won't work anymore. Some Windows 8 update completely broke it. And I'm like, I'm so sick of this thing crashing. I'm just absolutely fed up and done with it. So I moved to XPlane. And my first plane in XPlane was a 727 by FlyJSim. I learned that thing inside and out, backwards and forwards, every gauge, every button, every knob, everything about that plane. Like I had nothing else to do except work and then this. And I had a 3-hour commute round trip. So I spent a lot of time reading and got recognition. That was when I finally started getting recognition on the stream. And I hit that threshold of my first, 10 viewers. Excuse me. People called, people noted that I was flying that thing. I was flying at VOR to VOR. I was flying on VATSIM, and I was streaming the whole thing. And that's where that started. And then we just kind of went from there. So, I sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say so much nuggets in there because I'm listening to you going, all these up and coming people to flight simming have it good. They can go to a forum that has everything. They can go to a store that has everything. All the airplanes are good. The software is good. No struggling. No figuring it out. For the most part,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I read. There were YouTube videos out there for a lot of this stuff, but a lot of it was read the manual and figure it out.
Jeez.
I read the manual. I taught myself VOR navigation by reading.
Yeah. And I learned VOR like navigation from you. I didn't read anything.
Well, you're probably not very good at it then.
It's no joke. Between you and Pilot Edge and VOR to VOR flying, I was like, oh, okay.
Then that was this. Wow. And then that was another thing is that around the time so my Pilot Edge ID number is like 2,600, and now they're like 35,000 or whatever they're up to. But Pilot Edge was, we 2 or 3 people on the network would be a lot back in those days. And so, Keith's business has grown as streaming has, not that it's necessarily, 1-to-1, but we've definitely these two businesses have kind of gone up together or grown up together, if you will. And like you say, that a ton of stuff has changed in the last 5 or 6 years in terms of usability and how things are done and how much information is out there and accessible, not just on, Twitch, but also you find YouTube videos for anything. So I to sort of circle it all back, a lot of people, one of the questions that'll come up is that, how do I make it on Twitch? And I won't ever say that I've made it because, our little corner of the world is teeny tiny little compared to the rest of Twitch.
Yeah.
But like in the flight sim world, I'll say that it was 100% right place, right time. Like I started getting into this stuff. I started learning to fly in the sim. I started streaming all around the time that everybody else was starting to learn how to stream too. Like not just flight sim, but every other thing that was out there. Like when I started, you would see a StarCraft 2 event that had 1,200 people and you'd say, wow, that's a lot. You'd see a StarCraft 2 professional player that had 130 people watching him and you'd be like, man, that's crazy. And like it was just the time. It's the same thing with YouTube. Like the guys that started YouTube earlier had a leg up. And if you're trying to get into any of that stuff right now, I wish you the best because it's going to be exceptionally difficult.
Well, here's something for you because I get this question sometimes about streaming. Yeah. When did you decide and how did you decide to put a camera in front of your face and how important is it, do you think?
I made the decision pretty early. I don't know exactly when it was. It was very, very, very early. I think that I don't think it's required, but I think that you're going to have a humongous uphill battle without having a webcam because people want to see your reactions. They want that extra connection. It's like saying hello to somebody. I can say hello, hello, Saul, and that would make you feel a certain way. And then if I was looking at the camera as I said that, and as I'm talking to you, I'm also looking at the camera, just force of habit. if I'm looking at a camera, making eye contact with a camera, you perceive that I'm making eye contact with you, and I say hello, Saul, you're going to have a different set of, feelings about how that is. It could freak you out, and you could say, I don't want to do that again. My experience has been, though, that those without webcams are it's going to be tough.
I think it's kind of down to the way that we're wired in general, where we're wired to have face-to-face interactions, and that's why it's so hard for people right now, where we're in the situation that we are right now, because we're not able to have that. And I think that's why face cams are such a big thing and make such a difference, is because it's like you're sitting there with the person. And even if you don't have that interaction that you just mentioned with me, for instance, where you say, hello, soul, and you look right into the camera, it just feels like I'm in your presence and we're all flying together,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like I watch. So one of my favorite streamers. Sorry to interrupt you. One of my favorite streamers is he goes by Moon, and Moon built his stream from nothing to one of the top 25 at the time on Twitch, not ever showing his face. Like nobody ever knew what Moon looked like, and it was kind of a thing. But thousands of people watched him play Overwatch. He was without question the best and most entertaining streamer I'd ever encountered. And it was funny, the first time he put a face cam up, the first time we saw him was at a Blizzard event at BlizzCon, and we found out that he's actually like this 28-year-old bald dude, like balding, like I'm molding, I think would be the phrase you would use. And he never realized it, and now he sort of falls into it, and it's part of the community and this and that. But it's not required, but it's tough. Because people want to have that connection.
Yep. I mean, it leads me to, to remember when I realized that you were into beer and you were brewing your own beer and stuff like that. And you could show it on camera and you're like, hey, today we're drinking this vintage or that vintage, So, I mean, how's that coming, by the way? How's the beer thing coming?
I haven't done beer for a long time. I haven't made beer for probably 2 years now, just because of baby stuff and life being busy. My wife and I also make wine, though.
Oh.
And while we did not make wine last year, we had a surplus from the year before that we're still working our way through. It's a fantastic amount of work in the terms of like cleaning and making sure that everything is spotless and pristine. And then it's a whole lot of sitting around waiting. You like,
oh my God,
you hang on. We got a motorcycle outside. You do a lot of work. You do a lot of cleaning. You crush grapes, or you boil mash for an hour or two, and then you put it into a container, and then you stare at it for however long you're going to stare at it for. And then it's ready to bottle, or it's ready for its next vessel. So then you move it to a bottle, or in the case of wine, we put it into our carboys or our demijohns, and then we stare at it for months, knowing that we're not drinking this thing for months. But I love it, man. It's fantastic.
That must be torturous, because right now I'm doing ginger beer, so we have like the big jar on our counter, and we're just watching everything bubble up and all the fermentation going on, and it's so tempting because it's right there, and you know that you can have some, but you just have to wait until it's just right.
You're not gonna like it. You're not gonna like it until it's been carbonated.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's the thing with beer, is that you try it and you're like, this tastes like crap, even when you're bottling it. I'm like, I guess it's going to be okay. It isn't until it has that little bit of acidity and that tang from the carbonation that you're really you're really like, oh, this is fantastic.
How did you get into that? How did you get into brewing stuff?
So my wife is Portuguese, and her family all have made wine pretty much their entire lives. So through her, I got into winemaking. And then she bought me a beer making kit for my birthday one year. And then just sort of went from there. It was one of those like, I don't know, we'll give this a shot. How hard can it be? Because we already had a lot of the stuff. I had all the glassware. I had all the, disinfectant stuff. So I didn't, my cost to entry, my entry cost was not huge, put it that way. So yeah, like most things, my wife pushes me to be a little bit more adventurous and actually do stuff, but besides sit around and play video games.
Get you up and out of the seat, man.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now I feel bad because now I just go down to the store and pick something up, but I think I would love to do it. Yeah. It's my labor 6 months, a year later, like, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this vintage.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about beer is you can drink it usually in about 4 to 6 weeks.
Ooh, that's
because
good.
like from the time that you bottle it, usually you bottle it and it's about 2 weeks or so to do that in bottle fermentation and get carbonated, and then it's ready to drink. And you want to drink it most of the time because beer doesn't age most beer doesn't age super well. Unlike wine, where wine is, we don't start drinking our wine until it's usually 9 to 10, maybe 12 months old. Like I said, the stuff I'm drinking right now, well, not right now, but the stuff I have downstairs is almost 20 months, I want to say, since we crushed it and fermented it. And that'll just, that stuff will get better up for our homemade stuff. Will get better up to about 3 or 4 years. And then that's where it starts to taper off. But I've got a bottle of wine. I've got bottles of wine downstairs that we made in 2013. So I've got some older stuff to try one of these days.
So you have 7-year-old vintage in your basement.
7-year-old vintage, yes.
Oh man.
And boy, sometimes you open a bottle of that stuff up and it's like, ooh. I'm drinking this because I made it, not because I enjoy it.
Oh my God. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting, man. Absolutely.
But tonight I'm drinking a Dynasty. It's an Imperial Stout by Night Shift Brewing Company. I needed to get out of the house yesterday, mostly because my wife is like, you need to take your daughter and go do something, because she needed some alone time. So I took my daughter, we went to a brewery and picked up some beer. It was about half hour each way.
Hey, man. Awesome.
It's good stuff.
Now, I mean, talk about beer. Another thing we learned about you through your streaming is like, tuning into a reality show, basically. It's your real world flying.
Yeah.
How you transitioned from FSX, XPlane to I am flying right now, like in the real world. You know what I mean? I remember when you did your spreadsheet and everything like that, you were going to cost this thing out. Yeah, exactly.
That too.
That spreadsheet is the most expensive spreadsheet I've ever put together. I kid you not, Norm. I was sitting down. It was 2017, I guess, in the winter. And so some backstory here. So first of all, I never flew an airplane before getting into simming. Getting into simming, I made contacts with pilots and airline pilots and got pretty good at doing stuff on Pilot Edge. And Keith was constantly like, well, why don't you just go learn to fly and this and that? And Max did the same thing. Like, just go do it. I'm like, I don't really have $12,000 laying around to go do this. And so when I was to go way back in time, when I was young, we had a house fire, and that's one of those moments in my life that I look at, and I can honestly say that that's one of the top probably 3 worst things that's ever happened to me. And there are times, even still, 20 plus years later, where I like the concept and idea of a house fire terrifies me. Yeah, it sucks. But I say that because in February of 2017, one of the houses behind us had a fire, and it was destroyed. And I was like, you're kind of already dealing with the lows of the winter blues. And up here in Boston, it's dark for like 15, 16 hours a day in the wintertime. And then that sort of pushed me over the edge to feeling pretty down. That led me to looking at, okay, I need to pull myself up somehow. Like I need to find something. I need to find some way to get myself out of this rut, because it was not a good time for me. And I started looking into the feasibility of flying. My best man had bought me a Discovery flight for my wedding gift, and I had used that the previous year, knowing that I wouldn't be able to continue with this at the moment. We bought a house. We had gotten married. Just money was pouring out more so than it was coming in. But also in 2017, what happened is I got partnered on Twitch. And so I found myself with not a lot, but a little bit of extra money that was coming in. And so the spreadsheet that you're talking about existed as a way for me to sit down and say, what is this going to cost me? I researched all the local schools, all the airplanes they had for rent, all their instructor rates. I looked at how much is a check ride going to cost, how much is a medical going to cost. I basically put together all these expenses, and I said, okay, here's the average that most people take to get a PPL, and here is the number that many people I know who are into simming have been able to hit. I think my target was around 50 to 55 hours. And I said, okay, here's the cost for this. And that's what the spreadsheet told me. It's like, here's your estimated cost. And I'm like, okay, what can I afford per month? And I said, well, I could probably do 1 or 2 lessons a month. And I don't know if you guys have done flight training, but a flying lesson's about $400 to $500 around here. So I can afford to spend about $800 or so a month to put towards flying, based on extra revenue coming in through Twitch, based on a job change, based on just a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I got in touch with the school, and so a couple months since that fire had passed, I talked to a gentleman, Tim Campbell at Eagle East Aviation in Lawrence, and I could tell that Tim and I were going to click. He's this curmudgeon-y old man, not like super old, but like early mid 50s. Mm-hmm. He'd been flying his whole life. His parents, his father flew, his grandfather flew. Like, this man,
he was the guy.
Yeah. And I told him, I'm like, I also was, and the first time I met him, and I said, by the way, I'm also talking to one of the flying clubs here on the airport, and I just want to make sure there's no issue if that you don't have a problem with me, or you're going to feel bad if I am flying their planes and not yours. And he looks at me, and I kid you not, this guy's probably got thousands and thousands of hours flying. He says, I don't care. I just want to fly. Perfect. Hired. Sold.
Wow. Yeah.
So on the spot, first time meet, I'm like, all right, let's do a discovery flight next week. Get me in Saturday. What can you do? Took my wife up. Him and I immediately clicked. I loved his style. I just, from the get-go, everything about his instruction style was perfect. And we hit the ground, man. And I started off saying, I told him this. I'm like, a couple times a month. That's about what I can cut right now. And then, the Twitch thing started doing a little better, and I started making concessions in other parts of my life to say, well, maybe I won't spend quite so much money on this or on that. And I was doing twice a week for a little bit until I basically was trying to get myself to my 3 solos and my solo endorsement as quickly as possible, knowing that that's going to save me the most amount of money. I also had access to a very cheap plane through the flying club I joined, which helped too. And so I soloed in 4 weeks-ish, 4 or 5 weeks.
Really?
Gee, I mean, I soloed
way faster than I did.
4 or 5 weeks at 15 or 16 hours.
Oh, okay.
So like, it was from an actual time perspective, it was quick. From a time spent in the airplane perspective, it was probably quick-ish, but it was what it was. It was very windy. It was very bumpy a lot, and just it's when everything sort of worked itself out. And then I just trained like crazy, man. Tim and I, it was not necessarily here's Tim saying what you should do next. It was, well, where are we at? What are we doing? And it was like, he was going down the list of all the PPL requirements, saying, well, all right, now it's time for 3 hours of hood time. Okay, we got that. It's time for 3 hours of cross country time. We got that. It's time for our night flying. We got that. And it was just checking things off as I went down the list, and ended up getting my PPL in September of 2017. And I'm going to tell you, here's how egotistical and cocky I am. I had my PPL check ride. I had it scheduled for, I think it was 8 a.m. I had to do it real early. I had to fly up there first of all to do the check ride, because it was up in about 50 miles north of us. And my wife and I had planned to go to New York that afternoon. So the plan was to go past the check ride, fly back, have lunch, grab my wife, and then fly down to White Plains for the evening, where we were staying the night.
Already done, finished.
So I had my PPL, I had the printed piece of paper where the ink was still wet. And here I am flying into New York's airspace, flying into freaking White Plains. Like, hey, whatever, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got my PPL in 40, I think it was 46 hours, was the final number for that.
I'm going to come back to real world flying, but real quick, how much confidence did simming give you? 2%, 5%, 10%?
All of it.
20%?
I kid you not, man. I had to the point to where maybe that was even a bit of a detriment. So my philosophy for learning was I know nothing. I want you to teach me. Okay. You're the instructor. I'm the student. You teach me. Beyond that, when it came to flight planning and flight execution, when it came to my solo stuff, when it came to any of that, I'm like, I don't care, man. I got this. I know how to do this stuff. Like the nuts and bolts of flying the airplane, teach me to do that. Executing across country, flying into like one of my solo flights, I flew up to Burlington, Vermont into Class C airspace, which had me flying into Class C airspace. It had me dealing with my first FBO, parking the plane for the afternoon, having lunch with some very good friends of mine, grabbing some beer from a brewery. Obviously, I didn't drink anything, but I did bring it back with me. And clearance out of a class, all of that stuff. I didn't even care. Like, I didn't even think about it. And I remember I was talking to Keith Smith about that flight in particular. And Burlington, I don't know how much you know about that area. Burlington, Vermont is on east of the airport. There are these kind of we call them mountains, 4,500 foot mountains, large hills, depending on where you're at in the world. And I was talking to Keith and I said to Keith, yeah, I turned down the opportunity to turn direct sooner, and opted to keep going south because I wanted to make sure I knew it was a hot day. The density altitude was high. I wanted to make sure I had enough room to get myself above the mountains and not only not hit the mountains, but in the event I had an emergency, have an out. And he's like, that is thinking that I would expect from somebody who has been flying for hundreds of hours, not somebody who has been flying for 30. So like that type of stuff, I have no issue in saying that was all the sim. Like, when you're no longer worried about communication or navigation, you can start thinking about things like, if I had a problem, what do I what considerations do I have to have?
Mm-hmm.
So your workload, your mental workload goes down because of your comfort level from simming.
Yep, 100%.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, and it's such even when I step back in the airplane, having been away for a while, like I'm going to fly probably in 2 weeks. I'm going to fly for the first time in 3 months. Which will be the longest time I've been away. But even after I've been away for a while, I have no issues in terms of communication or navigation or any of that kind of stuff. Like, the only shakiness I have is the actual operation of the airplane. Watching my checklists, making sure I'm doing everything correctly, this and that. But like 30 seconds into the flight, I'm like, I just did this last night. Yeah. Like, that's how it feels sometimes. And that extends even further when we start going into talking about the instrument side of things. Like, instrument flying, it's like it was instrument training was so boring for the most part. Like, I learned everything. I felt like I learned everything I needed to know. And somebody's gonna say, well, you can't, that's impossible and this and that. But I felt like I learned instrument flying in the first 15 hours. Really? And then it was like 25 hours of here we are shooting another approach. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Let's go fly a DME arc, even though we don't need to, because at least that's something somewhat different. And just a lot of that kind of stuff.
I'm laughing, Abby. I got a smile on my face just listening to you talking about it because, I remember, the sim, the simulator desktop computer, you have a mouse, mm-hmm. You got a panoramic cockpit, you got to, click here, drag, swipe. I figure you're in the airplane, it's a little bit easier as far as touching stuff,
Yeah, and it is. It absolutely is. But the thing that you get out of the sim when you're doing it, we'll say more realistically, when you're doing it online with ATC and a real plane with charts, with ForeFlight, like my setup mimics the real plane as much as possible. The thing that you get is the multitasking. You get the confidence of communication. Like, when you're on pilot edge taking off out of John Wayne, if you're VFR, it's going to be, right turn 280 on departure, maintain at or below 1,200 feet. So I'm thinking about that in the sim, right turn at or below, maintain the heading, maintain the altitude, go to departure, talk to departure. Like, you're still doing all of that stuff, even if the interface is a mouse and keyboard. And it's still, you're still having to do things like listen for your call sign, to navigate an airplane, do your instrument scan and this and that. And that's all stuff that transfers over to the real plane 110%.
Did you do your ratings on Pilot Edge? Was it a
I
V1?
did.
Oh, you did. Okay. Wow.
I did the V ratings, which was the really old ones. I did the cat ratings. I did the I ratings after I had my instrument rating. I did those so I could start doing the sky high stuff. But yeah, I've done all the ratings on there. They're absolutely worth doing. You learn a lot doing them. Even having had the confidence and experience that I had, I still learned something doing those ratings.
No, I mean, for you guys listening out there in the audience, man, take note. I mean, if you guys want to fly for real in real life, take your flying on the desktop a little bit more seriously than just, setting up at the end of the runway and put it on autopilot 400 feet.
I agree.
Yeah. Some guy said to me the other day, goes, "Hey, why are you hand flying the plane? What about autopilot?" I'm like, let me just, I don't have any desire yet to fly in the real world, but enjoy yourself.
I'm going to tell you this. I use the autopilot all the time in the sim because flying in the sim is infuriating after you've experienced actual control loading.
Yeah.
Really?
Like when you've experienced the feedback that you get, because in the real plane, when you're trimming, what you're really doing is you're and this is oversimplifying things completely, but you're setting the elevator to a position. You're basically setting the yoke to a position, but you're having to hold it there. And so when you trim, what actually happens is the pressure that you have to exert on that yoke to hold it in that position starts to get less and less and less and less and less until you can let go of the yoke and it stays in that position.
Yeah.
And
it's not like it kind of in the sim, it kind of takes on that idea of like a secondary flight control or whatever. Not a primary flight control. It kind of takes on that feeling where it's like you kind of use the trim there, but when you're actually flying, it's very much it's like you're holding a weight that slowly gets less and less. Like you're holding, like let's say you're holding sand and you're slowly opening your fingers to let the sand go. It's kind of like that.
So you're trimming out the forces then, I guess.
Say again?
You're trimming out the forces.
You are, yes. And the way that it works in the sim, if you can think, is you're holding that stick back and you're adding forward trim to it, right? And you're slowly releasing the stick as the plane holds the attitude that you want to hold. And then eventually the stick goes to neutral, and that means you're trimmed. And that's the concept in the sim, and it's sort of the same concept in the real plane, except in the real plane your yoke stays where you put it. Like there is no centering of the yoke.
Got you. So coming back from real world flying to the sim, you're like, you know what? Let me just do autopilot because this is not right.
And hey, man, if you want to hand fly, like I do hand fly a fair bit. I hand fly approaches and stuff like that a lot. But as far as the en route portions, who cares?
Jeez. For those of us who want to do real flying, and you mentioned you belong to a flying club, how does that work? And,
so there's a few different ways to fly. Okay, a few different ways to get access to an airplane. We'll say the first one that most people are going to jump into are renting an airplane from a flight school. That flight school exists to make money. Even if they're not making a lot of money, they still got to make money. So they're renting those planes for a profit. And that's generally the most expensive way that you're going to get into flying. Next to that is the idea of a flying club. And in my flying club is we have 3 airplanes, a Cessna 182, a Cessna 172, and a Piper Archer. We have 60 members. We all paid a fee to get into the club, and we pay a monthly fee to remain in the club. So our monthly fee goes towards paying for all the fixed expenses of the airplane, the annuals, the insurance, the tie down costs, and things that you're going to pay even if you never fly that airplane at all. And then we pay a rate that's hourly, and we pay based on TAC hour, because the TAC hour is what is generally used for all maintenance stuff. And that rate for each plane is set so that, for us at least, so that we break even. And that's all the operational stuff alongside how the airplane runs. So it's going to be oil, gas. It's going to be your oil changes. It's going to be any of your wear items, new tires, new brakes, things of that nature. Anything that could wear as a result of the plane moving comes out of that fee. So a Cessna 172 rented from a flight school for me is going to be about $160 around here. And that's going to be a steam gauge, no frills 172. My flying club's 172 it's a steam gauge, but we do have a single G5 it's a CDI, HSI, whatever, the one that shows you where you're going, how to navigate. And we also have a Garmin 430 that has WAS. And so it's a very capable IFR flyer, an exceptional VFR flyer, and the equivalent rate is about $110 an hour wet per Hobbs hour. So I think I pay 125 TAC, and that comes out to about 110 an hour Hobbs. So it saves about $50 an hour over the flight school plane.
A better plane, so to speak.
For what is absolutely a better plane, yes. And then you get into things like ownership and partnership that are more expensive but more convenient, but could save you money if you're flying enough kind of stuff, but also more risky because you're taking on all the costs. We spread the risk across 60 people. In a partnership, you're spreading it across in people. I know partnerships that are 2 people, partnerships that are 10 people. And yeah, if you can find a flying club, it is without question the cheapest way to fly. Bar none. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh? It's good. So the less people in the club, the more money you're going to be responsible for. The more
generally, yes. Gotcha. It depends on the airplane, depends on the costs and this and that. Like my first flying club I was in, we had a 1966 Piper Cherokee 180. It looked and smelled like it was from 1966. It had 30-year-old avionics. It was a great VFR plane. It was no way I was going to fly that thing IFR. I paid $600 to join the club. I paid $50 a month. There were 10 of us. I was pretty much the only one that flew that airplane, and it was 108 an hour.
Jeez.
I will never fly a plane that cheap again in my life.
That's cheaper than rent a car in New York City, man.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And because I was pretty much the only one flying it, like I had full reign. I bought an airplane for $600. Like that's essentially what it came down to. And that's why I was able to fly as much as I was, because I could schedule that thing whenever the hell I wanted. Like there was an afternoon, I was still a student. I'm like, you know what? That's a nice day out. I want to go do some cross country practice or whatever. Not a true cross country, but I was able to solo to 3 different airports. And I'm like, I'm going to go land at all 3 airports today. So I called my wife. I'm like, hey, I'll be home in a few hours. I'm going to go flying. After work, I went straight to the airport, got in the airplane, booked it, flew, came back, and that was that. And you would not have been able to do that in a flight school plane. And it was also a lot cheaper.
Well, let me ask you this, Deb. I've been on a commercial planes tons of times. I sat in a Cessna 172 at one air show here in Florida a few months ago. That thing was so cramped.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an old one. How long does it take you to get over that claustrophobic feeling of sitting in a small cockpit? It's like a small car, even smaller. How did you?
So I'm a big dude. You said you met me in person. I'm 6'5". I weigh anywhere between 240 and 270, depending on COVID and everything else. And it can take some time. It's like any small car. If you get into like for our European brethren, like when I go to Europe, we rent a Fiat Panda, and it has about as much room in the front as a Cessna 172 does. And it's just like, all right, well, like we're going to touch, our legs are going to touch, our shoulders are going to touch, and there's not really much that you can do about that. You just get used to it. Now, a small plane would be like a Cessna 150. I have no idea because I'll never be able to fly one. I would need I think I figured an 85-pound instructor to be able to get into one of those airplanes and get checked out.
They're so small. I started in one of them and then moved on to the 72, and boy, there is a ridiculous difference, and it is very welcome.
Yeah. You just get used to it, man. And like the claustrophobia stuff, it really depends on you. For people that are afraid of tight spaces and this and that, I immediately am like, here's the air vents, point them on your face. Are you cold? It doesn't matter. Leave that air vent on your face, because when you're up at altitude or when you're moving, you get those air vents on. It's all ram air coming through. Excuse me, and it'll feel like you've got the windows down in a car, and so it feels a lot more open and a lot roomier than it really is.
Wow.
Now, I'm about to do my commercial training later this year in a Diamond DA40, and I have about a 1/4 inch of clearance between my head and the ceiling. So I'll let you know if next time we talk, later this year or next year, I'll let you know how it went from a claustrophobia standpoint.
So we're going to have lots to talk about with this commercial training coming up then. Jeez.
Yeah.
Are you excited about that?
I am, dude. I'm super jazzed about the COVID stuff for many reasons, but I'm super jazzed most of all because I was supposed to be a certified flight instructor right now. My plan was to have it all done by the beginning of May or the middle of May or so that I would be going to Flight Sim Expo with my CFI rating. And I'm really excited to get it going. I'm excited to get into it and dive into it. As a result, I haven't done a whole lot of studying these last couple months, just because it's like, I'm not going to be flying it for a while. But I can't wait.
How does one get? Well, actually, I don't know how to phrase the question, but it's safe to say that your wife has been into you being into aviation for a long time. She's your backbone, I guess, or backing you up with it. I mean, how does she
say?
Yeah, how does she like the flying? Or let's say, come on, let's go flying. How does she like that?
She loves it, dude. Yeah. So I took her. She went up for my discovery flight. She went up and did freaking pattern work with me, man. Which is, I don't know how she did that, but she would go up and fly along with me whenever she could during training. And when I got my license, we did our last flight together before the baby, about 2 months before the baby came, and she loves it. So I try to get her up as much as possible. It's a little bit more difficult now, but she's definitely into it. She grew up going to the Azores a lot, and so she was in the puddle jumpers, going from island to island to island, and so she kind of didn't have that fear of flying that some other people might, just for that reason.
Yeah, that is great. That is great to have. Definitely, you guys can fly together as a family.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had this one instance. I think it was last year at some point. Yeah, it was last year at some point. We were flying back. So we were flying out to dinner. We were going to go out to Glens Falls, New York, to where there's a fine dining French restaurant on an airport that is amazing food. On the way out there, a line of thunderstorms was picking up quite a lot of strength, a little faster than anticipated. So I ended up diverting to another airport for dinner. And then on the way back, we had her very first instrument approach through instrument conditions. And so she was a little bit freaked out as we're, descending, and we descend into the clouds. But outside of that, she's been totally fine. And she got over that pretty quickly too. I think I told her, look at the instrument panel, look at the attitude indicator. That's the gauge you want to stare at to keep your bearings.
She's got to go get a husband who's like, yeah, I got this, son. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
Back to the simulator. What's your take on the state of the sim world now? With let's talk about XPlane first. With all the add-ons are coming out and so forth, and later we can probably talk about Microsoft 2020 and your take on that. But as far as XPlane, I mean, are you excited for the future of it, or what are you thinking now?
Man, this is a tough question, dude. I won't lie, I've been pretty down on XPlane for a couple of weeks now. If you had asked me this 6 weeks ago, my answer would have been a little bit different. I love XPlane. Right now it is unquestionably my favorite sim. I would say it's the best sim, but only because it adheres to the kind of flying that I tend to do. A lot of small to mid-size airplanes, instrument approaches, and sort of things of that nature. I think that XPlane has, I think it's gotten worse as we've gone through XPlane 11. Like, we started off, the sim ran great. Once folks started releasing their updates to their add-ons ran great. And I feel like as we've gotten through the XPlane 11 life cycle, more changes have been introduced to the flight model and the engine modeling. Changes have been introduced to adding the particle system. And I think it's just destabilized the sim significantly. I really, really, really hope that Austin and Ben and all those guys can knock it out of the park with 11.5 and with the Vulkan update, and then with rumors of whatever I've heard coming down the road as well. Because competition is very good, and XPlane still, I think, has a lot of potential that is there in terms of the graphical quality, the stability, and sort of things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Maybe not the answer that you were looking for. Or no.
I'm listening. I'm thinking about it because it's a whole different perspective. Because we tend to, new plane is coming out, but we're not actually looking at the effects of things getting broken all the time. We just kind of.
I love it
sought
when
them
new
out.
planes come out, but we haven't seen a lot of new planes. We're hearing about a lot of planes, but if you think about the last year, kind of what we've seen, we had the A321 from Tullis, which I do enjoy that airplane, but the last 2 times I've flown it on the stream, it's crashed on short final.
Ooh.
And we look at the stuff from Flight Factor, which are updates, new products that are being sold, but they're really just kind of updates to existing products. You're seeing a lot of rehashes from XPlane 11 come from other folks that are making planes in the GA world. And I haven't felt that there's anything to really get excited about with XPlane for the last year or so. And I think that comes across. I know that comes across on the stream as well, because it's like, because I find myself, I've actually knocked it back to 1 night a week for XPlane, because I was doing 2 nights a week, and I'm like, what am I going to do tonight?
I mean, to be honest, I must say that even Soul knows this. I talked about, say, you know what, let me go to P3D just because I can get some better quality add-ons. Seriously, I was really considering it, and only because of the entry cost to get it up and running to a certain level, why I haven't done it yet.
I think that cost to entry is what's keeping a lot of people in XPlane right now. Because I've thought the same thing, and I'm like, I know that to get into P3D, I'm going to have to get some custom airports. I'm going to have to get, FTX Global. I'm going to have to get Chase Plane. I'm going to have to go buy a couple of these airplanes. Like, there's so many little things I'm going to have to stack up. I think I sat down and did the math one time, and it was like $700 or $800 I'd have to spend before I could even confidently jump in and say, all right, let's fly this thing.
Yeah.
Plus then the extra time to learn a new interface, to learn Chase Plane, to learn Active Sky, like to learn all the stuff that I have to learn to be able to put on a show and say, all right, let's go. And I don't have the time for that right now. Like, is what that comes down to. And I think that's actually good for XPlane.
That's what's kept me away from expanding P3D, because I have it, but I don't really use it that much, because the amount of time you have to take to learn things, coupled with the out-of-pocket stuff, is ridiculous. Like, there's still a lot of scenery stuff that I haven't figured out, because unlike XPlane, it doesn't really do it automatically. You have to layer things, and like, airports are broken most of the time because things aren't layered properly, and then that's another hour of trying to figure that out. And then you have like your whole shader preset, because P3D has terrible shaders.
And you hit on one thing that I think that XPlane had. It was a big driver for me to jump into XPlane in the XPlane 10 days, and it's been a big thing keeping me in XPlane 11, is the ease of adding and removing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's all folder based, so it's very easy to know what's running, what's in there. Here's the configuration file. There's no registry crap to deal with or any of that. And like, that's one place where I will praise XPlane, is that it sort of builds on a lot of the accepted methods in the open source world and the Linux world, where it's like, here's a folder based system, and you just dump the folder and it's good to go. Like, I've been running the same scenery folder since the XPlane 10 days. All my ortho and all my custom scenery has evolved from XPlane 10. It's literally the same folder on the same hard drive.
So here's my simplistic brain. I'm like, okay, Austin should just stop development of XPlane behind the scenes and work on add-ons, or help developers work on add-ons. Is there something missing from XPlane that needs to be fixed and updated, or should they just, okay, we have Vulkan now, let's level it off and bring a lot of people in? Is that too simplistic?
That's an interesting idea. I think with 2020 coming, and with the so I will speak on 2020 based on the event that I was invited to last year, and not as an alpha tester.
Gotcha.
Based on what I've seen with that sim from a world building perspective, I don't feel like it's enough. XPlane has a high barrier to entry in terms of learning how to use the sim, because it's not super intuitive. Like, my most popular video on YouTube is how to use the camera system. And the camera system is good. The camera system is powerful, but there's nothing in XPlane that says, hey, we have this camera system and here's how you use it.
Yeah, you have to find it.
Yeah, it's people Google searching, how do I get a damn wing view?
True.
And stuff like that. So they definitely have an onboarding issue with new people coming in. And I think that FSX, or 2020, I think, is going to get people into the sim easier, get them flying easier, and then that's where because that's the thing that FSX did. Like you can be flying, and like me as a never having done any of this before, I was keyboard flying an FSX on my first night, and forget trying to do that in X-Plane, man. Like it wasn't going to work. So I don't think Austin can sit back and be complacent, but I think Austin has spent a lot of time concerned with prop wash physics and concerned with, turbine behavior and a lot of that kind of stuff.
And that's what I meant.
Yeah, and less time concerned with, what are the things that make my simulator run well? The rendering engine, maybe some improvements to developer API, maybe because everybody uses Lua. So why don't we see more Lua stuff baked into the sim, which they have now, but it's still, everybody still uses Sassel on the XPlane.org side of things. Or they use Gizmo over at X Aviation. So like that's the kind of stuff I think you should be addressing, not why don't we have the right prop wash physics coming over my elevator?
And that's my thinking, is that we can get so realistic into the physics of X-Plane, which is already great as far as what everybody has said,
right?
And miss out on everything else, like working on the weather engine or the seasons, and because you want the realism of it as much as you can get, but you also want to be able to fly the thing and it looks good, and the eye candy and the weather works right, and you don't have the wind shift on final and things like that. You know what I mean?
I want it to look good. I want to be stable.
Exactly.
And I forego a lot of add-ons that I could be running in hopes of stability. And stability is my number one complaint with the sim, with anything. And there used to be a time when it would tell you, here's the add-on that caused the crash. And now it's just like, stop working, or just says nothing and it just crashes. It's like, what was the problem? Like my sim was running fine a day ago. And there's been times with various and obviously Laminar is not 100% to blame for third-party instability, but from as somebody who works in the software industry, there are things that you can do to work with your development teams and help them make things better. There were flight model changes that were put into place in like 1120 or 1130 that had developers complaining because it's like, this is the third time we've had to re-release our product to make it work with this new flight model during X-Plane 11.
Yeah, I agree, because it's part sim, but it's part entertainment.
Right.
Never forget that. We always, it's not a game, it's a simulator. Well, it is a game too, because you're here for enjoyment. You're not here to build a real world plane. You're here just to have fun. So if it crashes on you on final, then you're gonna be like, I'm done. I'm not gonna do this anymore.
That being said, I have spent some time in a $100,000+ Redbird full motion simulator that also crashed running P3D. So
no, seriously.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Can't win.
Yeah. Thankfully, I was given that time as a favor for some work I'd done for the guy that runs the Sim Center. But yes, and then had a conversation with the owner of Redbird that this came up, and I was like, I was one of those guys that had that problem. So like you're not going to get rid of it when you start messing around and mucking around with third-party stuff and modifications and whatnot. Like you're going to lose some stability. There's no question about that. But it's about setting best practices and sort of, let things progress as they will, if you will. So I think Vulcan's a step in the right direction. People that are running it, when it works, it sounds like it's a humongous improvement in performance. Like
it's
getting
crazy,
getting rid of things like stutters on loads, which has always been a complaint. And they've acknowledged that their weather engine is kind of crap. Like the cloud depiction and stuff like that. And that's something that's on their plate as well. So my hope is that Vulcan releases and is mostly stable. And then it gets them to think about, okay, what do we need to do next? Besides mess with prop wash physics.
Yeah, because while prop wash physics are great and they'll make some short-term things, at the end of the day, what you really need is that things that are going to go for the larger audience. And while some people really care about the nitty-gritty details like Austin does, at the end of the day, if you don't have something that's visually pleasing, especially in the time when we have Unreal Engine 5 coming, which just looks ridiculous, then you kind of need to go into that field more.
And I've had people say like, well, but we're rendering a world. And I'm like, have you ever played Grand Theft Auto 5? And have you ever gone up and flown around that world in Grand Theft Auto 5? And have you seen how seamlessly the level of detail changes and how Have you like that game is what
So, it's
everything
old now,
should
too.
strive to, and it's old. That's like
Yeah.
that's like an 8-year-old game, but it's what everybody should strive towards when it comes to a world building simulation. Because they're like they're doing all sorts of crazy multi-threading stuff with putting, I've heard they put like pedestrians and cars and all the AI stuff on other threads and feed it into the game, and it's just like that game is a textbook definition of moving the bar forward. And when you say that, oh well, XPlane is complex and you can't do that, I'm like, dude, like that game is far more complex than XPlane, and it runs 60 FPS, and my graphics card is laughing at it while it's doing that.
I hadn't thought about that too, because I remember when I started to install airports that had grass textures, and that really destroyed my graphics card. But now I love Red Dead Redemption 2, and I play it very regularly, and that has so much grass on it. You could feed like as many horses as you wanted to, and it runs fine.
Yeah, and it's got like SnowRunner came out, and SnowRunner, the grass textures not so much, but they have like deformations in the snow. Actually, Red Dead did this as well, like deformations in the snow that will stick around as long as you're in the area of that kind of stuff, and like just amazing things like that. That man, like there's so much that we can do.
And snow that melts on your hat while you're walking into warm areas, and all of this amazing stuff.
Now, in their defense, their development and art teams are significantly, and their budgets are significantly larger than a team like XPlane. Laminar is an independent company.
Yeah,
I gather they've got 10 or 15 people working for them. Ben Supnick is like the guy when it comes to the rendering engine. So there's definitely a difference of scale, but there's things that we can aspire to that I think that we're missing right now.
Right.
No, I mean, 2020 is around the corner,
and 2020 is around the corner.
Yep, that's the thing. So I'm hoping that
go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish your statement because
I'm just saying I know Austin's got to be paying attention to it. So hopefully the things that we're discussing and talking about, they're going to eventually, work
well, and it depends on. So from a business perspective, it depends on where he's actually seeing revenue from. Like I don't doubt that he's seeing a significant amount of revenue from the retail side of things. But I would, knowing the industry the way that I do, I would say that he's getting much more money from the commercial side of things. Like, I bet the commercial side of XPlane is what pays for that Lancer he flies, what pays for his cars, what pays for his house, military contracts and sort of things of that nature. That's where the money is at in this. And it's not necessarily, us, unfortunately. Yeah. And then you pivot over to 2020. 2020 is an entertainment product that's aimed at us, but what 2020 actually is a tech demo for some Azure technology for Bing Maps and world generation and stuff like that that's coming down the pipeline. So like even in the case of 2020, like they're trying to make us happy, but we're not the target audience in the long term for this tech.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense too, because people who aren't into flight simulation, like my friends who don't really know that much about it, they were like, why did they have this be the big announcement at, what was it, E3 that they presented it at last year? They were like, why was this the big announcement? And like, there you go, you just nailed it. It's because this is what they're trying to do for the future, and this is something that's like they're targeting investors in a way.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge tech from Microsoft. The thing about Flight Sim though, Flight Simulator, the series so it was always a pet project for Bill Gates, and Bill Gates always, and I don't, this may be incorrect to say, but I recall reading that Bill Gates said that as long as I'm at this company, we will make and sell a flight simulator. And sure enough, when Bill Gates was on, you lost, it was gone. Like that was it.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah. Because, but what Flight Sim has done is you talk to anybody in the aviation world and they pretty much have all done flight sim at some point. Like, and that's what I think is the exciting thing about 2020 coming up. I'm excited for the tech. I'm excited for the world building. I'm excited for, what developers can do with it. What I'm most excited for is having it target a new group of aviation enthusiasts, people that maybe don't know that they're interested in flight sims today, because and bringing them in and saying, here's simulation, here's what we do, here's flying around the world. And it may be that all they do is they take their 172 and they crash it into the side of a building, and they giggle, and then that's that. But you know that there's going to be people where that resonates with them in the same way that it has resonated for all of us, in the same way that it resonated for me back in 2013 when I was like, I need something new to do. And those people are going to jump into the hobby. They're going to embrace the hobby. They're going to, fuel the coffers of the payware developers. But more importantly, they're going to eventually, some of those people will eventually make it into the real world aviation side of things. And general aviation is, unfortunately, it's dying in the United States. And I think it's even more dire in other parts of the world. And there needs to be some sort of injection of interest beyond, the 60 and 70-year-old guys that are the ones that are flying most of these airplanes. And I think that's where 2020, like that's where all of my excitement for that lies. And seeing people look at that and say, like your friends, well, why was this the big announcement? Because we haven't had anything like this for like 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
And it's monumental, or potentially monumental.
Yeah, it's just a fresh look at flight simulation, which is something, I mean, although they're different in many ways, P3D and XPlane are also very similar in the way that their business models are created. And because of that, having this fresh look where it's more targeted towards the consumer, but also looking towards the future is really refreshing. And also, I did a quick Google, and you're right about the Bill Gates thing. He did say that.
Great. Yes.
There you go.
Fact checking as we're doing the podcast. I mean, if you think about it, like I would be willing to bet there's more people flying FSX Steam Edition than P3D and XPlane. Like I can almost guarantee you that that's actually that's the case, because when people think of flight simming, they think of Flight Simulator 10. I go look for Microsoft Flight Simulator because that's the one that I've always known. And our sims, the two sims that we have available to us today are fantastic, but like I said, there's that barrier to entry. It's not a game. It's a simulator. It's not meant to be a game. It's a simulator. And if you want it to be a game, then you have to put some work into it and turn it into a game through something like FS Economy or Air Hauler or whatever. But it's not out of the box a game.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I come back to the event last year with Asobo, and first of all, seeing the 2020 trailer, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. Like I played Microsoft Flight. I know where this is going to go. And going into that event, so the event itself was a 2-day event. Were any of you guys from Threshold there?
No, we weren't there.
Okay.
Because we've only recently really gotten on the map with stuff like that.
Gotcha. All right. So just some background. It was a 2-day event. I don't know why I was invited, but I was invited 6 days prior to the event.
Short notice.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I guess I can clear my schedule. Is like, because it was Thursday and Friday. I'm like, I can only do Friday. Yeah. That works for us. And then we're sitting around like I said, I knew I at that point I sort of put the feelers out to a few people. Like it was all NDA'd. You're not supposed to talk about it and this and that. But I'm like, hey, are you going to Seattle next week? and I got and a couple of people I got back a sheepish yeah. So I was in the second day. I was on Friday. A lot of the guys I know were on the Thursday teams. Squirrel, Frugal, Chewy, and a few other folks. I think the guys from FS Elite were there for the Thursday night as well. And so I flew in Thursday morning, and I met up with them after they had all already gone through the day's events. And we had very little information given to us about this. It was we signed a waiver saying that they were not responsible for any injuries that we had during a flying event. So we assumed that we were going to go flying. And they basically didn't give us a schedule. Like, yeah, you're going to watch a presentation. You're going to have some hands-on time with a sim. We didn't really know what that actually meant. So I remember sitting there at that hotel. Hotel was beautiful, right on that lake. Lake Washington, I think it was. Stunning view. And Frugal comes up to me after he gotten back and sits down. We have a beer. And Frugal was Pete. I love Pete because Pete speaks his mind sometimes to a fault.
Yes, he does.
And he's like, he had been super harsh and critical of them, and you would not believe the grin that guy had on his face that night. he just and the thing that shocked him the most wasn't how neat it wasn't how much potential was there. It's how much surprised he was that they actually pulled it off.
Yeah.
And did what they did. And so I finally went, and I remember sitting through the presentations, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is a historic moment for flight simming. Like, this is a historic moment for world building. This is a historic moment for video gaming. Like, this is, I'm just like, why am I here? Why am I here? Of like, there's imposter syndrome, and then there's like, why the hell am I of all people here? And then sat down and played with the sim for a couple of hours. We did our real world flight and all that stuff. But the whole thing was just this moment of like, wow, like holy, like they're actually serious about all of this. The production value of of everything about it was done to the, it was insane. And it was all for, 80 people that were at that event. And I'm like, the amount of money they spent on this whole thing and everything else, it was nuts. And after that moment, I was sold. I'm like, this sim, I used the sim. I found the edges of some of the things the sim could do. I guess I was the only person in 2 days that pulled out ForeFlight and tried to shoot an ILS approach. At the end of that, I looked back and there's like a half dozen developers that are over my shoulder. The CEO of the company sits down next to me, Sebastian, I believe, and we start talking. And it was just bizarre. But
no, you did Ty. You went
100%.
You went off script and flew over your house. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I flew, well, that was the first thing I did. And then I'm like, all right, let's go find some weather. You want to talk about your weather engine? So I pulled ForeFlight out. I found some weather. I went and I started shooting ILS approaches in the weather. And he sits down next to me. I'm like, hey, this isn't maybe, 100% accurate to what I'm seeing on here. And found, issues with the avionics, whatever. Like I there were problems, but it's also, that was a pre-alpha build too. So I'm not going to hold that against him.
It's funny because I think they did it the right way by inviting you guys because, as you said, the promo video was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yep.
But I actually went to YouTube and Twitch or wherever to see your guys' real reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sold me. Not what they said, is what you guys said. And I'm looking at your faces while you're talking about it and saying what you could. I was like, yeah, okay, I get it.
I wish there was a camera pointed at me the moment that I sat down in that sim for the first time. Like, I really do. And every single other person that was in that, every other simming enthusiast that was in that room will say, because like even Air Force Proud was there, and I had a great conversation with him, and he was just like, wow. Like, everybody who was into sims were just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Even with, warts and all, as Pete would say. It was incredible. And so from that moment on, I'm a zealot, man. I'm completely sold. And I think because of that, I've maybe been a little bit more critical of XPlane and the add-ons and stuff. But I look at the potential of 2020, and I'm you can hear it in my voice. Like, I'm so excited. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to see. I want this sort of advancement in everything.
I'm also really excited for other people to see it too.
Yeah.
I, like you, am an alpha tester, and I've seen it before, and I've used it before, and I'm really excited to see what other people are going to say about it, because having to keep that to yourself is so hard.
Dude, the original NDA was like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, you have got, and pardon my language, you have got to be shitting me. Like, I'm like, I can't, I was floored, and we were all just like, how can you, like, why are you doing this to us? And then they eventually moved it back to like a week and a half, but I had to sit on this for a week and a half. I couldn't talk about it. All I said, like, I did the Chewy thing and Chewy and I had some fun with it, but I'm like, I'm in Seattle on business this weekend.
Yeah.
That was it. And I was debating as to whether I wanted to do a video on it or just wait and do a live stream to talk about it. And I made the decision. So the video, I think the embargo lifted Monday morning, and I made the decision Saturday afternoon I was going to make a video on it, because they didn't get the material to us until like Friday, I think it was. And I was like, all right, well, I'll put something together. I'll schedule it. And I had a lot of fun putting that thing together, a little music intro with beginning thing at the beginning, and then talked. And I'm like, I just put something out there, and we'll see what happens. And sure enough, everybody had their their thing to put out. We all had the same footage. And actually today I still get comments on the live stream that I talked about it. Not so much the edited video, but it's like the 2-hour live stream that I sat down and we went through all of the footage that we had. That's the one that people were kind of drawn to. And I think it's, Norm, for the reason that you said, it's because of the real reaction. Like, if you could see me right now, even talking about it, I've got just a huge grin on my face. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. And
that's
there you have it,
2020.
guys. In the audience, that's the state of the simming world to come. So there's excitement to come.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You're hearing it from us.
Absolutely. Nah, this is great, man. I'm smiling to just listen to you guys go on and on and about it. Of course, you know, I log into the Microsoft FlightSim.com site every other day and refresh the page, and damn, I didn't get it yet.
Here's your completely speculative. I have no insight. I haven't even touched the sim, honestly, in like 2 or 3 months, just because of life's commitments and whatnot. But this time around, what I'm hearing from people in my community is that a lot of low spec folks got pulled into this beta. And I know specs aren't everything, but initially, like the first wave seemed to be 2080 Ti's, 2080s, 32 gigs of RAM, like big beefy honking machines. And now I think I saw somebody with a 1600X Radeon, or not Radeon, but a Ryzen.
Jeez,
so like almost like running the minimum specs that they have listed on the website. So my hunch is that Microsoft has an event planned for their E3 event planned for July, where they're going to talk about first party games. And I wouldn't be surprised if around that time we start to see a beta version come out and an embargo get lifted.
Nice.
But I don't know that. That's totally like pulling out of my butt. I have no idea. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then I wouldn't be surprised if we see an actual release come around the time that the Xbox One X comes. Probably, like, if you have to think about when video games tend to come out, a game like this is going to be like September, because that's usually when like Forza Horizon comes out and whatnot.
That makes sense, because I was in the second wave.
Mhm.
I don't know if that was because I also was given access to the SDK because of threshold stuff. But I was in the second wave, and I have a pretty mid-range PC in terms of stuff like that, with just a regular 1070 and an i5.
Yeah. Yeah, and for you, it could be press. Like, maybe your account was flagged for press. Like, I actually got 2 invitations, because I got an invitation through the event, and then also one because my computer I spent too much money on.
Yeah, I probably was flagged for press. Come to think of it, I did.
It doesn't, not to discredit anything. Like, it's, I don't know. I got on the Discord server for there's an unofficial Discord server for this, and it's just like everybody's just talking about, well, my specs are better and this and that. And it's like, that's not really everything that matters. But
that's why I didn't join it.
Yeah, I kind of not sure I'm going to stick around.
Yeah, I saw the invitation for it, and I just said no. I'm not going to go into that. I'd rather just keep these things to myself and all that.
Yeah, and I got a little trusted group of people that are in the alpha, and we kind of share our experiences and this and that, and most of our experiences are lining up with one another, which is mostly positive.
Yeah, me too. That's
one day, man. One day.
We're getting there, Norm. Soon it will be yours. Soon you can experience flying over your own house. Well, you can experience flying over your own house if you're in an area that has been photogrammatically recorded or whatever.
That's a real word.
I don't know. Photogrammetry is that's the word.
We just coined it here. Yep, we just coined it, man.
Yeah.
That's the new podcast slogan.
Yeah. Photogrammetry, Inflight number 18, or whatever the number happens to be. Here we go.
19.
19. Here we go.
True. Wow. This is great. Great.
It's good times,
absolutely, man.
We didn't even talk about an instrument rating. We haven't talked about flying in the clouds, but that's cool.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been great. I think you're taking the cake for one of the longest episodes right now. Maybe DeAndre Newman talked for longer. I don't remember how long. I'm going to look that up right now as I'm talking, but
what did I tell you before we started today?
What
did I tell you about streamers? Well, yes. And why? Yes. When you have a streamer on the podcast, guess what? I do this by myself for 4 hours.
There you go.
Every week.
So does Norm. I mean,
that's fair.
Team up and just let him go.
So So here's the scoop. In about 1 minute, you will exceed the longest in-flight episode ever.
All right. Well, we got to talk about something for a
Well,
minute.
let's keep talking. Yeah, absolutely.
So Norm, tell me, you have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, I'm a YouTube guy only.
Okay.
Twitch is full, so to speak. There's a lot of streamers on Twitch, so I decided, you know what, YouTube is the way to go for me, and I think I made the right decision.
Yeah.
I have a Twitch account, just never used it at all.
We should come say hi.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You should
I
come
watch
say
in the
hello.
background.
I'll say hello back.
I'll do it, man. I watch in the background. I watch any and all streamers. I put
That's
it this
how I
way.
am too.
It's like I don't watch TV. There's really nothing to watch on TV. Streaming, I have played in the background. If it's Airplane, you, Josh Gibbs, or all those guys I used to watch and stuff. Those the good old days of watching people stream. Now I do it myself. It's like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually doing that. But
sure,
yeah, I mean, I steal a lot of phrases from you. Welcome aboard. I mean, that's
I stole those from Frugal, by the way.
Really?
So I didn't, like Frugal. I remember Frugal when he was live streaming would do the welcome aboard and some other stuff. And I think back, I'm like, oh man, I completely ripped some of that stuff off. I stole some ideas from Squirrel. Like I steal ideas from everybody.
Yeah,
I tuned in the other day and I had a quick little chat with you on there, but I didn't say who I was because I didn't want to be that guy who was like.
You should have been that guy.
Okay, fine. Well, I was the guy who.
Don't be afraid.
I pointed out your Grotto headphones.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah.
They're good headphones.
Yes, they are. They're
I'm wearing them right now, actually.
I was playing some Minecraft on Thursday it was, and kid comes in and he tells me you should always keep your torches on the right side of the mine, as I'm completely lost, way at the bottom of a mine. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, dude. That's great news now. It turns out it was a very good friend of mine's 8-year-old or 7-year-old son
who had
jumped on. Ooh. And he was working the courage up to say something. I kept my tone very positive with him. And then I found out I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing, buddy?
That's not good. Wow.
But I didn't know until after, I don't know, probably 10 or 20 minutes. And he just kept talking and giving me tips and this and that. And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, this is such and such. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
It's a different world, man. It's a different world. Just watching comments come in and responding to everybody as much as you can. And, as you said earlier, looking at the repeat people who come back time and time again and just saying hi to them, definitely. I remember that, I think I had my name shout out one time. I was like, yeah, let me type real quick and see if it sees my name.
Well, there's people those people that'll clip it. Like I get to see all the clips that come through and you'll see people that'll clip like when I said hello to them. I was like, all right, dude, that's cool.
That's really sweet.
Or they'll clip their resubs and things like that once in a while, and stuff like that. It's I love it, man. Like it's the reason why you live stream instead of make YouTube videos.
True. I tell the story all the time. I live stream because I was too lazy to make videos. Recording and editing and posting it back up and hard drive space. Like, you know what? Forget it. Just live stream.
I do this for a living. Like one of my real world job tasks is to make videos. And I have in the past done contract video work for several people that you may know.
Well, yes, let's talk about that. You did the video for Citation Max?
I did, yes. I did work for Citation Max up until about a year ago. So we didn't part ways for anything other than I simply don't have the time. And whatnot. But yeah, that was stuff I did for him for a while. I've done some stuff here and there for other organizations and other folks, and it's fun. It's good. But yeah, then to sit down and say, well, I'm gonna sit down for 4 or 5 hours and put out a video. I'm like, well, I could go live stream for 4 or 5 hours, have more fun with it, and probably see the same results.
True.
Or very similar results.
Happens. We might crash or we might.
We might crash. Yeah, the sim has been unstable, but we already talked about that.
True. You said you did a little bit of programming. Have you ever thought about doing any kind of add-ons or no?
No.
Into that?
No, I don't. I've done enough programming to know that I don't know how to program. I've done things like I've done some JavaScript overlay stuff for the stream, and whatnot. But as far as stuff in the actual sim, like I have to pick my battles. I have to pick where it's best to put my time. And I feel like my time is better spent covering and talking about products rather than trying to build them myself.
rather than being a creator yourself. I got you.
Yeah.
It's a different
I hate
breed.
the phrase creator. Like I'm just a dude to turn the camera on and whatever.
No, man, you are a content creator.
I'm an influencer, they would say. Actually, I do have business cards that I carry around to the events, and I was like, what the hell do I put on these things? I just put content creator. Because I'm like, I don't know what else to say. I'm like, I'm just that guy on Twitch, I guess.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, I like that you
Catstrator.
like show yourself as like, not show yourself, but I like that you put
that would be a
up
different kind of stream.
Yeah. I like that you put up I like that you put up that front that you're just a guy, because if there's anything I've learned from this is that all of us are just people. It doesn't really matter if they make the best add-on that you think exists for XPlane or whether they're like the best streamer in the world. We're just having a conversation here, and it's very normal for me, and I'm sure for Norm too. And
yeah. And I've been super critical of some people that I know personally, and people that I would consider friends that I have maybe not been the kindest to. And it's because like I'm still a dude, but I still want to say, here's the thing about a thing.
Yep.
But my mantra is generally like, don't be negative. I try to keep everything upbeat and positive. If I don't like something, I just won't show it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But yeah, I just like, whatever. I'm just a dude. I do a thing that I like to do. And when I stop liking to do it, then I don't do it anymore.
That's it. At the end of the day, man, we're here to have fun. And if you're not having fun doing it, don't do it.
Which is why I played Minecraft on my stream on Thursday.
I haven't seen a Minecraft stream. I used to see Rocket League you used to play?
I've never done Rocket League.
No, what was it again?
I played Doom Eternal for a few weeks. I actually played the entirety of that game on the stream. I played some City Skylines on the stream lately. I've been playing some SnowRunner.
That game looks so good.
SnowRunner's a good game, dude.
Jeff seems like he's obsessed with it.
Jeff is addicted to it. I had a brief conversation with him a couple weeks ago, just after it came out. He's like, dude, I have it on my PlayStation. I play it downstairs on the TV. I play it upstairs on the computer. I'm like, okay. That's great, dude.
That'll be a fun conversation to have with him when he comes on.
Yeah. I love Jeff. So yeah, no, I love games in general, man. So I have my secret game that I'm playing that I won't stream. And there are definitely games where I'm like, this is me. This is my thing. I need a little break. I want to enjoy this myself. But other than that, I'm like, yeah, well, let's just stream it all. If you don't want to watch it, if you're upset by it, well, hey, I'll do flight sims on Fridays. And that's not going to, that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
It's funny because your numbers will change based on what you're streaming.
100%,
you have the core audience who will watch whatever you do, and some people are like, yeah, I don't want that.
I've spent a lot of time looking at the numbers, and it's like I can reasonably say that like a completely non-simulation focused game is going to get this kind of number. A simulation focused non-flying game is going to see this. DCS is going to see this. These types of planes in XPlane will see this. I've spent far more time thinking about that than I probably should.
No, it's true. I mean, I can tell you which planes people will be like, I've seen it too many times, or my God, I want to see this plane.
Well, they all want to see the airliners. You fly a jet? You fly a United 777 to Sydney? I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to do
that. I'm not going to sit here for 12 hours.
Yeah. If you want to see airliners, my good friend Chewy94,
all the time
over on twitch.tv, he flies airliners a bunch. So if you want to see some airliners, hey man, I love Chewy. Matt's a great dude. And stuff like people that come in are like, why don't you fly this thing? Sometimes I'll go look up at the following list and I'll say, this guy's flying that airplane. Go watch him.
It kind of just like lives up to your chat rules, which I actually got a kick out of a few nights ago, which is like everybody has this detailed thing with a bunch of rules, like don't do this, don't do this. Yours is just don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot, man. Yeah, rules are for schmucks, man. We're not gonna sit like, you're being racist. Well, you're being an idiot. You're being sexist. You're being an idiot. You're telling me to do a barrel roll. You're almost being an idiot.
Yeah,
but it's tempting.
But it's tempting. I thought about your suggestion for a hot second and said, no, we're not going to do that.
We're good.
Yeah, you got to have fun with it, and
true.
Like I don't the titles of streams. People you go look at the flight sim stuff, and this is, and again, everybody has their thing. I'm not saying the way I do it's right or wrong, but it's like XP11 real world pilots. We are doing pilot edge and this and that, and it's just this title of tags, and you look at mine and it's just like llama.
but
I actually went through the entire alphabet, picking out obscure animal names for 24 streams, 24 flight sim streams, and only about half of them did people ask, why is llama or whatever the word of the week happened to be in your title. It's just little things like that where I'm just like, like we're gonna have fun with it, but we're not gonna take it super seriously.
Yeah, enough people know you by now to say, yeah,
pretty much.
That's a Ty title right there.
Yeah,
it's a Catstrator
and
title.
Even a guy like Keith will come in. Keith owns Pilot Edge, and you'd think that Keith is sort of stodgy and everything by the book and this and that, and he's mentioned to me, he recognizes that like there's certain points in the stream where it's like, who cares? We're gonna have fun. We missed a radio call. Well, I feel bad about that. As long as I don't miss 2, I think we're okay. It's just little things like that. So it's all about having a good time.
Oh yeah! Wow.
When are you guys gonna live stream one of these things?
One of what things?
One of these podcasts.
We've thought about it here and there.
Yeah.
We're kind of toying with a lot of things right now.
Okay.
Because connecting all of that is definitely going to be a little bit more difficult since I don't think I have the audio equipment to like do all 3 of us. I don't know. I've thought about it. The major complaint we're getting right now is that we're not showing face cams, but I don't really want to do that because my room is always really messy, and I'm also trying to learn how to put it into my editing style too, because I'm more of an audio guy than less of a visual guy. So like doing that,
you just dump it all into Premiere and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, most of the guys that are doing the video stuff, they're doing like Google Meet or something or Google Hangouts that brings the face of the person forward talking. And I don't know. I listen to podcasts. I listen to them on my phone when I'm walking or exercising. Like I don't usually listen to them on my computer personally.
Yeah, I listen to Joe Rogan when I run.
Wow, I can't tell the last time I listened to a podcast. I have a YouTube premium account and just pull it up, close the phone, put it in my pocket, and headset.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Now I listen to Giant Bombcast. So I don't know if you guys know who Giant Bomb is, but a lot of stuff I do, I've ripped off from them. A lot of my philosophy I've ripped off from them, but I've been listening to the Bombcast every single week for probably 8 years.
Wow.
And it's that's my go-to.
Well, it's not ripped off, man. It's share and share alike. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, they but they don't know anything about flight sims, so I think the one guy that was into flight sims left the company and is doing something else. So never happens.
Yeah, look, I think flight sim is always going to be a niche, man. I don't think there's enough people who was into aviation to maintain this other than the levels that we have now.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more, but not much. You know what I mean?
Well, you're going to get people that are like the Air Force proud viewer coming into flight simming. Like those you're going to get a lot of those types of people coming into 2020, and I don't mean that to discredit that type of person at all, but there's a certain type of chat viewer that comes in and asks me if I know who Air Force Proud is. And I'm like, I know exactly what your next question is. Can you do a barrel roll?
Exactly.
Is that a real person? Are you talking to other people? What happens if you don't follow the rules?
Yeah, that's true.
But that's fantastic. Like a lot of them are younger viewers and whatnot. And they're the people that in 10 years are going to be pilots. So let them do it. Let them do it. Let them have fun.
That's true. Yep. Don't turn away anyone. Give them enough time, they'll settle down and calm down and, start taking it seriously. Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. I keep saying that about my daughter, but she just
you're
climbing the walls.
Every time you think that you've got it and she's in a certain age doing a certain thing, it's the next level before you know it. Trust me.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Enjoy it. Enjoy every moment of it, because before you know it, she's out the door. She's at college. You're like, what happened? Yeah.
Where's my teenager?
Exactly.
Good luck with that one. I know that we can be a little bit nasty sometimes.
It happens. It's all right.
Well, I love this conversation we're having, but I think we should probably continue some of it off recording.
Yeah.
So with that said, Ty, thank you so much for speaking with us. And I really hope that we can get to do this another time soon once all of our schedules are still open and once things keep on happening for you and keep on happening for Norm and all of that.
Yeah, Saul and Norm, thank you guys so much, man. It's been it's been a blast. It's been a pleasure. All the adjectives that you'd attach to joy and happiness. That's how I feel. So it's been fun tonight.
Man. Absolutely. Great. We covered everything from wine, beer, what we talked about.
Multifaceted is what they would say. Multifaceted podcast. There, if you want your title, that's it right there.
Maybe I'll change it. Inflight, the like multifaceted podcast. I don't know how.
No.
Ty Shuff.
The multifaceted Ty Shuff. That's it. There you go. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, that can be the episode title. Inflight 19, the multifaceted Ty Shuff. There you go.
No, I like it. That's it.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Twitch.tv/Catstrator, YouTube.com/Catstrator, Twitter.com/TVShuff. Whatever.
Nice.
Or don't do any of that. It's fine too.